You're watching the Weiss channel. Today I'm going to talk about the normal curve and the empirical formula. What? The empirical formula? The normal curve. The normal curve, right, is when you have the mean and the median are exactly the same, okay? And you have exactly half of the data on one side of the mean and half of the data on the other side of the mean. Now, if you are one standard deviation to the right and one standard deviation to the left, all of the data inside that area within one standard deviation is going to be 68% of the data. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, let's say you had a mean of 34 and a standard deviation of 3. Okay? Here's the mean, 34. Okay? One standard deviation to the right, if the standard deviation is 3, one standard deviation would be at 37, because 34 plus 3 is 37. One standard deviation to the left would be 31. So all data between 31 and 37 would be 68%. Okay? So if I ask the question, how much, what data points are 68% of the data, you would say 31 and 37. If the question was, what percent of the data is between 31 and 37, you'd say 68%. That's it. Okay? Now, if you are 2 standard deviations within the mean, all right, 1, 2 to the right, or 1, 2 to the left, that's 95% of the data. So once again here, if I wanted to know what's 2 standard deviations from the mean, that would be 40, because another 3 from 37 would be 40, and another 3 less than 31 would be 28. That would be 95% of the data. If I said what data points are 95% of the data, you would say between 28 and 40. If I said what percent of the data is between 28 and 40, you'd say 95%. So 3 standard deviations would be 99.7% of the data. So once again, 3 standard deviations would take me to 43 and 25, right? So if I said what data numbers were 99.7% of the data, you'd tell me from 25 to 43. If I said what percent of the data is from 25 to 43, you would tell me 99.7%. It's always going to be these 3 numbers. 68% is 1 standard deviation, within 1 standard deviation. 95% is within 2 standard deviations. 99.7% is within 3 standard deviations. So if the mean is 73 and the standard deviation is 5, you have a mean of 73. What's 1 standard deviation? What between 68 and 78, right? Minus 5 and plus 5. What percent of that is that? That's going to be 68%, right? What would be 2 standard deviations? 2 standard deviations would be between 63 and 83. That would be 95%. If I said what data points are 95% of the data, you'd say between 63 and 83. If I said what percent of the data is from 63 to 83, you'd say 95%. If I said what percent of the data points are between 58 And 88, you would tell me 99.7%. Okay? If I said what data points are 99.7% of the curve, you would tell me 58 to 88. Okay? You've been watching the Weiss channel.